Hey everyone, welcome back to the Book Cave with me, Jenny. So, it is that time again. This is my March wrap-up, and I did get through a good bit of books this month, and I did enjoy them all. So, I hope you all enjoy this. So, I read Tales from the Loop last month, and they did get the rest, so I got Things from the Flood. And again, these illustrations are just absolutely fascinating to me. And this one brings in more of the 90s, which is in this case, the loop closed in 1994. So this kind of follows the cleanup of the loop and what that has entailed, what it kind of going into disrepair has entailed. And it also deals with the characters moving from, like, boys to teenagers. Because I believe in the first one, at one point they're like, oh, you're going to be 10 next year. You're no longer, like, children. So, they're kind of, like, in between. But now they're turning, like, 13 and 14. And this one deals a lot more with, like, changes, moving, parents getting divorces, just things moving forward in life. And there is a line in here that says, like, something half remembered that we can't go back to. I feel like this one in particular is very eerie and haunting. And I'm very excited to get to Electric State and just see the rest of those illustrations and how the story continues. One thing I will say about this, it had a lot more double-page spreads and a lot more, like, physically darker imagery, a lot more of, like, nighttime and twilight. Like, this is one of the brighter illustrations, and so some of that did make things a little difficult to make out, but again, I feel like that kind of fits this in the is it real, is it not, this could have been history, but it's not really. Like, I want to say that most of this, like, take this robot out, and this was actually a real landscape, so all that kind of fits with it. But yeah, very interesting series, and I am now obsessed with this. So The Electric State, as you can see, is a Netflix movie, and I was a little bit confused at first, because I was like, Tales from the Loop was on Amazon Prime as a show. Why is this a movie? So, although you could say this is related to Tales from the Loop, this is set in America and does not deal with Rex Energy, and it deals with, instead of autonomous robots, they are controlled by people. Yeah, that is the best way to describe it. And you follow this 18-year-old girl and a robot, Skip, and they basically drive through Pacific America, now called Pacifica, and this is another one that you don't get a whole lot of backstory as to what happened. You just know there was some sort of technological war, and this is what's left of it. And you do find out some other things, but I'm going to let you find that out when you read it. Because, wow, this was definitely, again, a darker tone. And just so the illustrations, though, are still beautiful. And you have, like, the landscape and then just these things. And, yeah, I was very mad at the ending. I was expecting there to be at least, like, a couple more sentences at the end, but you get, like, 3 or 4 pages of just paintings, and then it ends. And the last painting, I am like, what happened? I need to know. But at the same time, it really works to leave it open-ended like that. And yeah, I would just say I will read anything he writes. And like, all his art is amazing. I can't imagine how long these paintings took him. And like, I would love to see them full size. And yeah, I'm very excited now to watch the movie adaptation of this. And I'm really hopeful that it's faithful and that the design especially is faithful, because like, his designs, they're fantastic. But yeah, obviously I highly recommend this. I highly recommend him in general. And like, yeah, I really do kind of want to get these books, but as oversized as they are, I would have a very hard time storing them. And yeah, I will probably be checking them out from the library again at some point, just to like stare at the pictures. And a funny story about that, none of these were at the library I usually go to, so I put them on hold from another library in my county. And the one librarian who shelved them, when she saw them, was very intrigued by them, and when she saw I picked them up, she asked me about them. So now she has them on hold. And then when I finished Things from the Flood, I've already taken that back to the library. When I've read this, I actually took it back and picked this up. And so the different librarian who checked Things from the Flood in, saw the cover, started flipping through it, and was very intrigued by it. And then she wanted to read it. So now they both have a hold on it, and they're both looking forward to talking to me about it. So yeah, I'm going to get like everybody in my local library to read this, apparently, because yeah, they're all very intrigued by it. And yeah, I hope you will be too. And I would definitely love to talk to any of you who have read these, watched the movie, the show, anything like that, because I am officially obsessed with this. So I mentioned that Things from the Flood was very physically dark. The Labyrinth is both physically and tonally very, very dark, except for a very few pictures. And I love how this one is mostly a story told by the illustrations. Especially towards the end, the text gets a lot sparser. And this one, I do feel like I would like some more background on the world. We're just kind of thrown into this story that these black spears have shown up on Earth and have made it poisonous. The atmosphere now has a lot of pneumonia, and tonally this kind of deals with what would happen in a dystopia like this, and in a situation where you could only save so many people. What would that mean for those who endured it? What would it mean for those who had to make those choices? And yeah, just definitely a very dystopian, very dark story. This one does not really have the whimsicalness that Tales from the Loop did, but I still absolutely love the illustrations, and the story is fascinating. Like, I dare to say, he writes very interesting stories, and they leave a lot to the imagination, a lot to fill in, but you also get like a good bit shown to you and told to you, although it's not in a way that it feels like it's being spoon-fed to you. It's like, oh, because of this, we did this. And it's just kind of like very brief. And is just kind of like, it assumes that you know some of this stuff already, and just maybe you don't understand the reasons why. But yeah, again, absolutely obsessed with him, and am very excited to see what else he puts out. The Beautiful Maddening is one of Shea Earnshaw's newer books, and I did like this. I do have to say I felt at least a little bit melodramatic. However, I do feel like that kind of goes with the territory. So this follows 17-year-old twins, Lark and Archer. Lark and Archer Good. And their family has had a lot of tulips in their backyard. And they're supposedly not normal tulips. They were stolen by their great-great-grandfather during the Dutch tulip craze and brought over here to America and planted. And supposedly they cause people to fall in love. But of course, it's just fake. And the love fades when the tulips do. And so we follow Lark kind of coming to terms with this. She is getting ready to graduate high school. And yeah, I feel like it was still good. And it is really about like first loves, summer loves. And so I didn't really mind how melodramatic it could be at points. And I did like the ending. I felt like it kind of went with the story really well. And I do like as well that this is one of Shea Earnshaw's summer books instead of the winter books like most of what she's written have been. And that is one thing I do absolutely love in this book as well, is that like the descriptions of the nature and like the description of the tulips is done very well. The description of like summer storms is done really well. And yeah, I just enjoyed all of that. And I'm really excited to see what book she comes out with next. My Husband's Wife is Alice Feeney's newest thriller, and also the first book I have read by her. And I don't think this will be the last. This had a lot of twists and turns, and I was kept on the edge of my seat the whole time. It did take me like a day and a half to read it instead of just one day like several other thrillers have taken me. But I felt like also this one had more information in it. There was more to like digest, so it took a little longer to read. And there were also some really good quotes in here. And yeah, I just really enjoyed this. And I think if you like thrillers, you'd definitely like this. If you like Alice Feeney, you would definitely like this. The only complaint I have about it is that some of the threads that wound up tied together, it just seemed like a little too much of a coincidence that all of this stuff just came together that perfectly. But other than that, this was really good and really fast-paced. You get multiple POVs, which is fun in a thriller. It definitely helps with the suspense of it all. And yeah, definitely highly recommend this one. Sunrise on the Reaping, I have been kind of stuck on for a while. I read the first 3 chapters last year, and then I just kind of fell into a book slump. And that's where I was with a lot of books, honestly. But I did finish this one this month. And I do have to say, I liked it. However, I'm not sure how much I will like it if I reread the rest of the Hunger Games, because I feel like some of it was just nostalgia making me like it so much. And then I did feel like some of the parallels between Haymitch and Katniss just kind of got to be a little too on the nose. But overall, I did enjoy it, and Haymitch's catchphrase, "I will not let them use my tears for their entertainment," was one of my favorite parts of the books. And of course, like, this was heartbreaking. I mean, obviously, going into it, we do know the outcome, and I think maybe that had something to do as well with why I felt a little bit of distance from it, because going into the Hunger Games, the original one, you know, you obviously didn't know for sure that Katniss was going to make it. You know, you didn't know who was. Anybody could have. But in this one, because obviously, you know, Haymitch is there, you know exactly, maybe not exactly how it's going to go, but close enough. And honestly, I would like to see one more Hunger Games book. I would like to see one that was about the first quarter quell, and I just feel like that would really broaden the world, because I do feel like that would be a book where you could easily travel through each district and, you know, do it like, I would say the voting would probably take place over about a week, if that. So it'd be interesting to see each district and how they react, how they vote, and just see what exactly would like happen in that situation. But yeah, back to this book, like I said, it was good, and I do feel like if you're a fan of the original series, you should definitely read this. If you haven't read the original series, I would say start with that and then circle back to these two prequels. I finished Vinegar Girl, which is a book in the Hogarth Shakespeare collection, the same as Macbeth that I read last month. And this one is a retelling of The Taming of the Shrew. And I feel like it could have been done a lot better. Like, in all honesty, we have Kate, and she's not much of a shrew. She is kind of a doormat for a lot of it. You know, her father has all these rules, and she's 29 years old, and she never questions any of them. You know, meat mash for dinner every single night, and she's fine with that. And I suppose maybe part of that could be she just doesn't want to cook, really. And so that's like an easy way to not really have to cook. But then the fact that she sits there and just does his taxes for him. She's not an accountant. She never says she enjoys that. And, you know, she just takes care of his whole house for him. Didn't go back to college when she could have. And I mean, again, okay, maybe she didn't want to, but like, yeah, she just seems to be really a pushover in him. And then she does have sometimes when she says stuff. And then you have Piotr, who is his lab assistant. And when her father first says, hey, can you marry him so that he can stay here in America? Her reaction to that, I felt like, was definitely on point, and like, she was outraged, like she very well could be and should be. And then at times he was sweet, but then at the very end, after they get married, and how rude he is when she's like getting out of his car, and the way he like yells at her, "I'm husband and you do what I say." Yeah, no. And that was another issue, is I understand that, yes, he is from another country where the primary language is not English. However, I felt like the way he spoke was very farcical, and just, yeah, it wasn't the greatest, and there was no real turning point where I saw like Kate and him falling for each other. And yeah, I just feel like there could have been several things done better in this. I listened to Palaver, and this is a story about an unnamed protagonist that they simply refer to as the son, and his mother, who they simply refer to as the mother. The interesting thing about this is that his other family members are named. His brother is Chris. His uncle is Stefan, I believe. He's not a huge part in this story because he did pass away a while ago. And then all the son's friends are named as well. And so the son has left home, which was Texas, and moved to Tokyo due to some differences between him, his brother, and his mother. So he is gay, and his brother does not necessarily support that, and his mother doesn't necessarily understand. Although it is pretty obvious by the end of the book that she does care, and you find out that her brother was also gay and had sadly gotten ill with AIDS and passed away from that. And so I feel like she has some baggage from that. And honestly, this kind of just explores her and her son's relationship, and then the son and his friends, and the mother and the friends she makes in Tokyo, and a friend she has back home. And I feel like that's where this really shone, was in the character interactions. And I feel like by the end of this book, you really get to know these characters, because you get to see the son on his own, the son with the mother on her own, the mother with her friends, the son with his friends. And so you get a really good idea of who all these people are and like what makes them tick and everything. And I absolutely love the son and all his friends. I feel like he has a great found family, and they are all very fun. And there is some drama, but in what friend group is there not drama, honestly? And I do love how everything concludes, and it's not necessarily perfect, but it is a, let's look forward to a better tomorrow sort of thing. And so yeah, I did really, really enjoy this. I did love the descriptions of Japan, Tokyo, and some of the other places that they went to visit. And yeah, overall, this was just a really fun book. I would only recommend it, though, if you really like character studies, because that is honestly all this is. But again, I feel like it was a very good one. Not Your China Doll is the biography of the early Hollywood star Anna May Wong. And this was definitely interesting to read because of Anna May herself. She was definitely a very interesting person. She was very vocal about equality for Chinese Americans, and she was the first major Chinese American star as well, and she was very well traveled, very intelligent, and I feel like that came through really well in this biography. Another thing that made it interesting is because it was set in like the 1920s, is, you know, when she started making movies. So she started out in silent films and moved into the talkies, and that was definitely interesting to like hear some of the comments about how she spoke and like her emotion when she spoke, and to see like how she reinvented herself so many times, because she was active from the 1920s until the 1950s. So obviously, like, she went through both world wars, the Great Depression, and all that. And it was just really fascinating to read this and, like, see how she reacted to it and how she got through it by reinventing herself, by learning different ways of acting and everything. And she was also extremely well traveled, so it was interesting to read about all her different travels and just how popular she became very, very quickly. Like, she was obviously a very charismatic person, and honestly, she's somebody I had never heard of, and I'm definitely glad that I got to learn some more about her. And there are a few more biographies of her, so I think I'd like to listen to at least one more, but we will see what the library has to start with. And yeah, I definitely recommend this if you're interested in learning about her, in getting a little bit of a picture of early Hollywood, even America during the World Wars, America during the Sino-Japanese War, because that was interesting too, to read about her activism through that as well. And yeah, it's just a very fascinating time in history, and we get to follow it through a very fascinating person. So that's everything I read in March. As always, thank you so much for watching this video, and if you liked it, please remember to hit the like button and to hit that subscribe button so that you'll be notified every time I post a new video. And also check out my socials on the end page here, and I will see you next time in the book cave.